because people have this.
Okay, good
theory
evening.
that they're not
I'm going to call the,
anything, so they make
this
some
special
extra-
board meeting to order. It's a reorganization board meeting. And could we have a roll call, please?
Ms. Davies?
Here?
Ms. Delaney?
Here.
Mr. D'Imperio?
Here.
Ms. Thomas?
Here.
And Dr. Mason?
Here. Any agenda revisions or approval?
Yeah, under H, in
H.
my,
Okay,
putting the committees in, I forgot policy.
okay.
I did this from afar and missed it, so.
Which one is it?
Any one of the, I don't know, number 4, 3 or 4, and committee appointments by the president, I forgot to put policy in there.
Okay, could I have a motion to approve the agenda with the,
So moved.
adjustment?
Yes, moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve the agenda. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right. Oath of office. I get to administer the oath of office to you guys. And what I'm going to have you do is stand, Dr. Thomas, and you may read this.
I, the undersigned, who has been duly appointed to the Board of Education of the Lake Mills Area School District, but have not yet entered upon the duties thereof, swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of Wisconsin, and will faithfully discharge the duties of said office to the best of my ability. So help me God.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Welcome aboard. We need to have you sign that. And Rachel, I have you stand.
Okay.
Can read that.
Okay. I, the undersigned, who has been duly appointed to this Board of Education of the Lake Mills Area School District, but have not yet entered upon the duties thereof, swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of Wisconsin, and will faithfully discharge the duties of said office to the best of my ability, so help me God.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
And then you sign it,
Okay.
and then I will sign it. You get to keep one?
They keep one, we get one back.
Okay.
So did you sign all copies, Dr. Mason?
For me?
You should sign all 4
Yes.
copies.
All 4 copies?
Yes. So the one that you gave Dr. Thomas, you should sign that.
And they can go back to,
All the way
yeah,
down.
they can go back to Mr. Sanders. Okay, action items. Approval of the Board of Education President. You can take, we can take those all together, we can take it separately. Mr. Sanders will assume control of the meeting at this point.
Usually it's standard that the superintendent takes it now because it's a new slate. So as of really right now, until there's another one elected, there is no board president. So I would ask for nominations. Again, you can do it separately or you can do it as a group. It's legal either way. So anyone have a nomination?
I would nominate Dr. Mason as president of the Lake Mills Area School District Board of Education. I would also nominate Dr. Delaney as clerk of the Lake Mills Area School District Board of Education, and nominate Dr. Thomas as treasurer of the Lake Mills Area School District Board of Education, and move nominations be closed and a unanimous ballot cast.
He's the vice president, so he's not putting himself in there. That's what he's doing. So let's take those 3. Any objections? Any questions? All right, we'll do a voice vote on those 3. Bob?
You want a roll call?
Yes.
Okay. Ms. Davies?
Yes?
Ms. Delaney?
Aye.
Aye.
Mr. D'Imperio?
Aye.
Ms. Thomas?
Aye.
Mr. Mason?
Aye.
And then you have it, so you can take the vice
Okay,
president.
so I will take nominations for vice president at this time.
I nominate Robert D'Imperio as Vice President of the Lake Mills Area School District Board of Education and move nominations be closed and a unanimous ballot cast.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded to elect Mr. Robert D'Imperio for vice president. Could we have roll call, please?
Again, Ms. Davies,
Aye.
Ms. Delaney,
Aye.
Mr. D'Imperio,
Aye.
Ms. Thomas,
Aye.
Mr. Mason.
Aye. And that carries unanimously. Thank you all, and thank you for your vote of confidence. So we got A, B, C, D down. Approval of use of facsimile signatures.
I move the board approve the use of facsimile signatures on board officers where legal and appropriate.
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve use of facsimile signatures. Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Ms. Delaney,
Aye.
I'm sorry, Ms. Davies,
Aye.
Mr. D'Imperio,
Aye.
Ms. Thomas.
Aye.
And Mr. Mason.
Aye. And that passes unanimously. Approval of designation of the district's official newspaper.
I move the board reappoint the Lake Mills Leader as the district's official publication.
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve the Lake Mills Leader as the official publication. Any questions, comments? Roll call, please.
Ms. Davies,
Aye.
Ms. Delaney,
Aye.
Ms. Thomas,
Aye.
Mr. D'Imperio,
Aye.
Mr. Mason.
Aye, and that passes unanimously. Approval of designation of official school district depositories.
And you have that on the other sheet that was sent to us.
I move pursuant to Chapters 25 and 34 of the Wisconsin statutes, the following financial institutions be designated as the official depositories into which the school district treasurer hereby delegated to the business manager is to deposit all public monies received by the district. Bank of Lake Mills, in Lake Mills, Greenwood State Bank, Lake Mills, Badger Bank, Fort Atkinson, Local Government Investment Pool, Madison, PMA Financial Network, Warrensville, Illinois.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second it.
All right, moved and seconded to approve the official depositories. Any questions about who they are or what they are? Comments?
Some of them, I mean, really, it's like the Bank of Lake Mills and Greenwoods, and then Badger Bank, that's mostly that scholarships, right?
Badger
Correct.
Bank is the scholarships,
Yep.
yes.
And the local investment pool, that's the government pool? That's
Right.
not involved in the budget, is it, at the cuts?
Oh, no, no,
Okay.
that's simply the transition point from
Okay.
state aid payments or grant payments being routed to the school district currently.
And PMA?
PMA holds some of our construction-related
Yeah,
financing.
okay. So they all kind of have their own purpose.
Correct.
Any other questions? Roll call, please.
Ms. Davies,
Aye.
Ms. Delaney,
Aye.
Mr. D'Imperio,
Aye.
Ms. Thomas,
Aye.
Mr. Mason.
Aye, and that is approved unanimously. Committee appointments by the president. The Finance Committee, we really have three committees at this point. The Finance, the Facilities, the Personnel, and the Policy Committee. The Personnel Committee is really a committee of the whole. It's not an official kind of committee, so we really meet as a whole to determine what used to be negotiations, although that's somewhat changed over the years. So the Finance Committee, I will appoint Dr. Thomas to that, and Mrs. Davies. We'll get your feet wet right away.
Okay.
Facilities Committee, Mr. D'Imperio and myself. The Policy Committee, Dr. Delaney and myself. And the Personnel Committee is the whole board. We need a WASP convention delegate, and that's the Wisconsin Association of School Boards. Dr. Thomas has done that for about 25 years, so she's ready to throw that ball to someone else. Usually it is held in when?
January?
January, toward the end of January, the WASP meeting, and usually it's in Milwaukee. Is there anybody willing to go? Good, thank you. Ms. Davies?
You and I can talk about that when we get close.
And CISA 2 annual meeting delegate, I will do that. I've done that forever also, so I'll go to that again.
And you have the paperwork in front of you, the pink up there
Oh,
in the corner that
Yeah.
has to now be signed for that, and Dawn will have to sign on that.
okay,
And then Dawn, we will get you a signature card too for checks and things like that. But on that one, sign both copies again, and then we'll send one in and we'll put one on file.
and the certificate of election goes to Dr. Thomas?
Yes, that's given to Dr. Thomas.
So, I will take an adjournment, and then we'll prepare for the Cape Forum. So, I hear a motion to adjourn.
I move adjournment.
Moved and seconded to adjourn. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned.
I'd like to welcome all of you to our first Community School Board Forum. On behalf of Citizen Advocates for Public Education, we hope that this will be an informative and interesting session for you. As many of you know, CAPE is a local public education advocacy group in our community, and our mission is to support and advocate for quality public schools here in Lake Mills. Tonight, we're happy to be sponsoring this forum and want to thank each of our school board members for their willingness to take this time to share their perspectives on our school district and to also engage in a conversation with us about our school district. Joe Storrs, a former school board member and a longtime Lake Mills resident, is our moderator for the evening. So I'd like to introduce Joe and also thank him for his willingness to moderate this event. Joe, the floor is yours.
Thank you for that introduction, Sandy, and I'd also like to say thank you to you and your board for all the efforts you've made over the last several years in promoting awareness of education in the community. It's been very good. My name again is Joe Storrs, and I will be serving as moderator for tonight's forum. Now, I personally think that having a moderator for a forum such as this is really kind of superfluous, but perhaps will add a more dignified air to tonight's discussion. And if that was the intent of CAPE, then perhaps they should have found somebody else to do it. So I'd like to start by introducing the members of the Lake Mills Area School District Board of Education, and recently elected Rick Mason, President, Donna Thomas, Treasurer, Dawn Delaney, Clerk, Bob D'Imperio, Vice President, and Rachel Davies, who would, you don't want me to say newbie, do you?
Sure.
Okay, newbie.
It's laid out there.
Just there, okay. So, the district has recently completed its strategic plan, and one of the main purposes of tonight's forum is to provide an opportunity for the board to present their perspectives and on the significance and the nuances of this plan. Each member will give a brief presentation, and then we will proceed to a question and answer session, during which the public is encouraged to engage with the board members in a civilized manner, of course, with questions regarding general educational and school district issues. So, lastly, I would like to remind everyone that tonight's forum would be best served if it were devoid of political overtones and innuendos. That being said, I am personally quite anxious to hear the board's big, bold ideas and how they plan to implement these ideas with the tools that they've been given to better govern our public schools. And that being said, I will turn it over now to Rick Mason, who will give his initial perspectives in a brief presentation.
All right, thank you. And thanks for acting as moderator with all the dignity that you deserve, right? Anyway, we have no preconceived questions or anything, so we're just talking like from the top of our heads. So I basically wanted to hit three things: the strengths of the district, the goals that I have anyway as school board president, and then any challenges. And there's many challenges out there. And it's interesting, you should say, Mr. Storrs, about the, you know, avoid the political overtones. And that's hard to do because education has become so politicized in the last few years. So I'll attempt to do that anyway. But it's hard.
Don't let me stop you.
It's hard to do. Let's talk about the strengths. The strengths of the school district of Lake Mills is the staff. We have an excellent staff, K-12, actually pre-K through 12. They're a dedicated staff. They're good staff. We have, and under that staff, that includes everyone. That includes the administrators, the teachers, the custodians, the secretaries, food service, bus drivers. All of them are here to serve us as a district, and they do a very good job of doing that. We have excellent students. Our students do very well on tests. Our comparison to the other districts is very high. Our students are very well behaved. We don't see a lot of expulsions. I think there's only been a couple since I've been on the board for the last about 8 years or so. So there are very few. The parents, we have excellent parents, supportive parents. There's an art fair going on in the elementary school, and I heard today there was a huge amount of people volunteering to put things up and everything, and they finished in a relatively short period of time. So there's a lot of support from parents and also support from the community, and you can see that in the schools that we have. The facilities are some of the best in the state, if not the country. Our new elementary school keeps getting awards, and there's more to come. And it's a wonderful facility. If you haven't been in there, you need to take a tour of it. The other strength of this district is the fiscal management that we've been able to enjoy over the years. We've had a very strong fiscal management. We saved money where we could. I'll talk a little bit more about that as we go on. So those are the strengths that I see. The goals that I would like to see, there's a couple of them, and one we're working on right now. It's called OPEB, and it stands for Other Post-Employment Benefits. We're working on that, and we've been working with a consultant, and the teachers have had input into that, and basically what kind of benefits do they get when they retire. And we've been working on that and continue to work on that, and we should come up with something fairly soon. The other goal I have is to redo the salary schedule. The salary schedule, the old line and staff is kind of the thing of the past. It's changing. We need to look at something new and better to do. And then that brings us to the challenges. And there's many challenges out there. The biggest challenge is getting sufficient money to run the school district. It's a monetary question. And right now, as the proposed budget stands by the governor, is to eliminate $150 per student. And that's actually a setback rather than moving ahead. And there's been a lot of lobbying effort. The superintendent and I and the high school principal have gone to the Capitol to lobby Senator Fitzgerald, Representative Kleefisch, to at least restore what we had. And that's what we're working on. We're trying to get at least back to what we had. And the other concern I have, and it goes along with money, and it all boils down to money, is retaining our staff. I'm particularly concerned about the staff that is like the 6 to 12 years of teaching for us, of longevity, and those people, that's a critical time, I think, to maintain our staff, to keep them here. The way school districts are operating now, it's just a matter of keeping your head above water rather than giving raises to anyone. And unfortunately, if you look around us, a lot of the districts are running their districts by referendum. And we've never had to do that, knock on wood, at this point. And I hope we don't in the future. But if money becomes short, that might be something that we have to look on down the road. But you look at the districts around us, and they've passed referendums to exceed the operating cost and the salary caps that have been put in, or the caps that have put in by the state. So that's my take on it anyway. So who's next?
Well, according to my agenda, we would go then to Donna Thomas.
Yeah, I'll just expand a little bit on what Rick talked about, because a lot of the things I have also addressed things he's already talked about. In talking about our schools and our school strengths, I think the first strength is that we have great schools and a great community. I've lived here a long time, and this community's always been supportive of its schools. And so I think that's, and the next thing that I think is a strength, and I think, you know, when people work together, they have disagreements, and as a board, we have disagreements. But I think the board in general always puts kids first. Whenever we have to make decisions, we always seem to rally together, no matter what our individual views are, and put the kids first. I think the third strength of our district right now is its facilities. We've had a remodel and expanded middle school, and now we have a brand new elementary school. And the other thing is that we've always had a long-range facilities plan, so that not only are we just building schools, but we're trying to maintain them as we go along. Because, as you know, you can build something, but if you don't take care of it, it isn't going to last very long. But this board and boards before that I've worked on always have had maintenance top on the agenda. This isn't always easy because, as Rick talked about, we have financial issues all the time. Reiterating what Rick said, we have a good financial position in this district. We've not been like other districts where we're scrambling for money and having to make tremendous cuts every year. And I don't know how long this will be able to go on. I mean, I think, you know, a lot of districts are struggling, but right now, and for quite a few, in all the years I've been on the board, actually, we have not had huge financial issues in the school district. And also, we've been able to, some of you may not think this, but we've been able to retain a reasonable tax levy and tax increase every year. It may seem high to you, but if you'd look around to the area school districts, you'd see that we're not only competitive with them, but we're not above them at all. In fact, we're lower than quite a few. And that's really kind of amazing in the fact that we've remodeled and expanded a middle school, and we've added a new elementary school. The next thing that I think is a strength is that we have a very broad base of curriculum in this district. And now with technology, we are expanding that curriculum every day. So if you think about the curriculum in this little district of Lake Mills, our students have access to all the same courses that they would have at the largest school district in the state of Wisconsin, no matter where that might be. Because we have distance learning, we have youth options here, we have youth apprenticeships for students who are interested in careers and going into the world of work. So we've had a broad-based curriculum that manages and always stays up to date, which I think is very unique. We have students that take AP classes here. We have quite a offering. If we aren't big enough to offer them right on site, we offer them online. And we have mentors that help our students in taking them. And our students do very well on the AP tests. Our students also have good test scores. Although I tell you that's a strength, I'm also going to mention it as a challenge and something that we need to work on. And reiterating again what Rick said, I think we have a wonderful staff, K through 12. Not only a professional staff of teachers, but a support staff and all of the people that work with us. What do I think are the challenges and some of my goals? Challenges and goals kind of go together. And some of them relate to this district alone, and others relate to a larger picture of things. And I think that one of the things that we need to, that I feel is a real challenge, and that is for us to be able to maintain local control. Our state schools were founded on local control. In fact, the federal government left it to the states, who left it to the local people. But we're having a hard time holding on to local control at a time when there's high legislative involvement. And I think all of you know that. I think another thing in Lake Mills that's a challenge, and it's a goal for me too, is our community is becoming more diverse. When my husband and I moved here over 40 years ago, there wasn't all the different ethnic groups. There was just, it was a very homogenized community, and that's not true anymore. Our community is becoming more and more diverse, and as a result, we're having a broader spectrum of needs that we need to meet. I think keeping the curriculum up to date is challenging, as well as keeping teaching strategies up to date, and keeping the board up to date too, because sometimes our administration brings us things and I don't know how that can possibly work. I'm an old-time educator, and yet I know we have to look at new changes. And so technology is here, and so we work to keep our curriculum up to date and our technology up to date. I think the next thing is we need to keep working on improving communication and sharing our educational decision makers with all of the stakeholders, whether those are teachers, parents, the community, whatever that might be, because we have a highly educated community in Lake Mills and many, many professional people who have a lot to offer in the decision-making process. And I would like to see them more involved than what they have been, and I encourage more involvement. And then, again, I think the other thing that's one of my goals is to keep up the maintenance of our facilities. And I think as you look around in this room, this is our oldest building in the school district, and maybe we're not ready for a new one right now, but we need to begin looking ahead because it's not far off. Our science labs and all of the other, our gymnasium at this school is our oldest gymnasium, and if you've been to the other two buildings, you kind of know what I'm talking about. Our vocational wing, keeping it up to date. All of these things are things that we need to do, and particularly here at the high school. So those are kind of some of the things as I see as goals, and I don't think I mentioned, but Rick mentioned it already, and that's we need to keep working on trying to grow education in a real competitive marketplace. And the marketplace is competitive. We used to have in public schools a corner on the market. We don't anymore. There are charter schools out there, there are private schools, and these are growing every day. And they're competing for the same resources that we're competing for. So it's important that we continue to grow our schools, but be ever mindful of the taxpayers at the same time. Somehow it's kind of a balancing act that we need to work on. So those are basically my ideas.
Thank you, Donna. Dr. Delaney, your comments, please.
Well, I agree with everything I've heard so far. I think amongst our strengths really are the dedicated teachers, administrators, superintendent, and the board that we have. Everyone seems to be very committed to schools and to the children in Lake Mills and the school district, emphasizing public education. And I'm very much aware of some of the challenges faced by the budget cuts and trying to maximize what we can do with the money that we do have and trying to continue the high quality of education that I think we've all come to expect here in Lake Mills. Some of the things that I might add to that would be appreciating just the diversity of instruction and curriculum that we do have here. We have strong arts and music, as well as science programs, math. Our students have opportunities to travel to Europe and other countries, and I think that's really something that we might take for granted, but it is a wonderful opportunity for our students. And also amongst the board and teachers and the community, we have a lot of connections to Madison College and also to the UW colleges, and I think we can maybe capitalize a little bit more on that, but preparing our students for four-year school or two-year or, kind of technical programs. There's a lot of careers out there that are looking for students, and they need workers, and we're not filling that need. Electron microscopy, I think, was one I heard at MATC recently. They can't, there's jobs and there's not enough students. So maybe finding ways to get some of our students interested early on in some of the careers, that there are some jobs out there that we might kind of help, kind of meet that need. Some of the challenges obviously have to do with budget. That's one of the biggest challenges I think most state public schools are facing right now. And some of the goals that I see are continuing to work with our teachers. We need to kind of continue to focus on bringing in young teachers, new teachers, and then retaining them. But we also have an obligation to keep the high quality, more experienced teachers that we already have here and work in ways in terms of salary and benefits to also provide that environment that brings people here and also makes them want to stay here. Because I think another one of the strengths of Lake Mills has always been we have teachers that have been here a long time and know our kids, and they've known our kids from when they were little until they get older. We just kind of have that kind of family type community that I think we really need to, to continue to nurture.
Thank you, Dawn. Mr. D'Imperio, I believe you're next.
Thank you. It's probably going to sound redundant, but I think some of the strengths that we have in this district are our employees, administrators, teachers, support staff. And I think that this is demonstrated with the understanding that our learners all learn differently. It's no longer having a sage on the stage. Now we need to engage our children, and I think we're seeing some of this differentiated teaching. And I think that the other strength is the families and the parents. I am always impressed when we have the back to school nights and the parent-teacher conferences, the high participation that we're able to get from our students' families. Those are very important because they all really work together, and I think that is truly a strength in this district. Our children have been very successful on some of the testing, and I know testing has kind of gotten a bad name in some quarters. But for example, the ACT test, we're preparing our students for college. That is, people are doing very well there. And that is really the goal, I think, is to prepare our students for their next step, whether that be a four-year institution or a two-year or some other form of post-secondary education. And I think that as mentioned before, that we offer through distance ed and through the internet a wider range of programming than just simply in our classrooms. And I think that is a strength. There are challenges, and the same challenges that others have mentioned, and that is to be able to retain our staff. We're in a very competitive marketplace. And one of the things that Dr. Delaney noted is that when my children went through this district, there was a lot more stability in terms of our teachers. But there was the baby boom has kind of hit, and there was a large number of our instructors who have moved on and retired, and so now there's a whole different mix of people, and we want to make sure that through compensation, through providing a good work environment, that we can keep these people, because again, that is the real key for us, is our staff. So I guess I don't have any more to add.
Thank you, Bob. Rachel, your comments.
Okay, I took a little bit different path. I don't think I got the email. So, as you all know, I'm the newbie here. So, and my children are very young. I have a fifth grader, a third grader, and a 3-year-old. So my perspective is from a young child's standpoint in terms of moving through the lower grades. And then also I grew up here. I graduated from this high school. I think the podium is still the same podium we used in forensics. The carpet looks very familiar. But I'm sure that things have changed since then. So I hesitate to really put forth my interpretation right now of our strengths and our weaknesses. But I do have a few things to say based on some work that I've done in the past few years. Every committee that's been held or put together that I've heard of through the district, I've volunteered for. And some of the latest work that we did as a committee for the district was strategic planning, and there were 2 committees that happened over the winter, and I was involved in both. And one of the books that we used, it's an excerpt from a book, it's called Good to Great and the Social Sectors. It's by Jim Collins, and it's a very inspiring book that takes a look at, generally people think of business and how do you take business from good to great, but you can apply those same principles to schools. One of the things that that Jim Collins said in his book, Good to Great, or one of the quotes that I've read from Jim Collins is, "Good is the enemy of great." And that is one of the key reasons why we have so little that becomes great. We don't have great schools, principally because we have good schools. We don't have great government, principally because we have good government. Few people attain great lives, in large part because it's just so easy to settle for a good life. Jim Collins also said, greatness is not a function of circumstance. Greatness, it turns out, is largely a matter of conscious choice and discipline. So I wanted to challenge us, this board, the administration, the community, and all of our students to be deliberate in our actions, inspired in our innovations, thoughtful in our communications, and to do meaningful work together. Let's keep good to great in our sights at all times and not let status quo get in our way. At this time of economic hardship for our Wisconsin schools, we must be diligent in our use of funds and creative in our access to more. We must do what we can to motivate and encourage excellence at all levels and retain staff and administration that continue to move our students toward greatness. Critical thinking skills and problem-solving skills have never been more important for our students. Let's allow students to think outside of the box and show us their passions. Let's give them the tools to communicate appropriately and wisely and focus their creativity as they will be the next stewards of our community and our world. Let's let them know that good is not good enough. Together we can achieve greatness, and I hope that as part of this board I can help bring that to fruition. And there were a few other quotes that I came upon as I was contemplating what I was going to say this evening, and one of them is from William Yates. Education is not the filling of a pail, but the lighting of a fire. And I thought that was very appropriate for what we're trying to do, and especially if we're moving from good to great. And Nelson Mandela said, education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world. But I don't want to forget, as a former educator and also as a parent, that it's not just about what happens at the school, it's also about what happens at home. And William Temple said, the most influential of all educational factors is the conversation in a child's home.
Thank you, Rachel. Are there any points of wisdom that were overlooked that a board member would like to bring up now? If not, we will open it up for questions from the audience. And again, please keep them of a general district and educational nature. If you have any personal issues you'd like to bring up and it is not going to require a closed executive session of the board, please talk to a board member after the forum. And also, please let us know who you are, okay? Thank you.
The microphone?
Would you like to come up to the microphone, please?
Hello, my name is Rita Prescott and I live in Lake Mills. I've been here for about 10 years. And what has struck me, listening to all of this, the words I heard repeated most were staff, money, budget, retain teachers. What I did not hear anyone mention as far as strengths is that our school district is good at building character. No one mentioned that as a strength. Rising test scores. No one mentioned that as a strength. Those are the two key things I believe we should be focusing on with our children. I didn't hear.
Can I ask, what is your question for the board members, please?
Why isn't building character and increasing test scores among your strengths? that you see in the school district or the school?
Well, we are increasing test scores.
And what are they?
Pardon me?
Do you have any numbers to back that up, Rick?
No, we're not going to play this game.
I'm sorry, it's not a game.
Well, it is a game with you.
No.
And I'm not going to play that game. Now, what I
Well,
can tell you
my basic
is
question is why should these two be,
test
a
scores
goal
are-
of being strengths in the school
Test scores are
district?
important. They're not the end-all and be-all, okay? There's other things like character education that are important also, okay? Test scores aren't the end game necessarily. It's important we do well on tests. And we have I believe, Mrs. Strike, are you back there someplace? I believe we had the most AP students, the highest scores in the county last year? Yes. Is that correct?
Well, I'll just say that's the wrong benchmark. We want it in the state, not in the county. But thank you.
I'm sure any one of the board members could have gone through the laundry list, if you will, of the Lake Mills Area School District strategic plan, but I think one of the important points that you brought up there is nurture the whole child and developing character and social responsibility. So I'm sure it's one of those things that they will be addressing.
I could say too, I think that improving our student achievement is very important, not only in test scores, but in achievement in all the different areas that we're talking about. And that's always a goal. That's not an end all where you say, oh, we got high test scores, so we don't need to improve achievement, because we do. And our test scores, if you look on the internet and on the DPI website, you'll see that our test scores are higher than the states, but the states aren't the highest either. And I think when we were involved with the strategic planning, Rachel, maybe you can address this too, we talked about raising test scores, especially in reading and math. Because they are good, but as she said, we want to get to great.
Right. Yes, that's a lot of what we talked about, and I think you all have a copy of the Strategic Planning Committee's work, and where we worked on the mission, the vision, and the belief statements, and there are a lot of, there's a strategic plan that we are also, I think the board is adopting later, that talks about all of that, inspiring teaching, learning, and achievement, nurturing the whole child, embracing the village philosophy, and serving as responsible stewards. So all of those things touch on that as well, and I think if we all had an hour to talk, we could talk about all of the wonderful things that are happening here, even with my limited perspective from the small children. I don't even have a perspective yet for the middle school and the high school children, and all of the wonderful things that are happening inside the classroom, in the hallways, within students socially, all of the wonderful learning that's happening about being great friends, and all of the DARE and the anti-bullying and all of the things that we're teaching our students about being responsible citizens and personal responsibility. So it's not just about academics, but it's also the whole child, nurturing the whole child. So there is so much happening here, and I know Amanda Thompson and Dean have given all kinds of tours at the elementary school because of a lot of the curriculum that's been happening there, not just the new school, but the programs that they're implementing there. So there is so much to talk about, and that's one of the things we just talked about briefly before this started, was that one of the things we're going to work on is PR, so that the whole community doesn't have to wonder and question or eke out information or just find a blurb here or there, but you all know what's happening, all the wonderful things that are happening here in the schools. So it's not just the sports, or the National Honor Society, but it's all the little things too.
Another question, please. Yes.
My name is Joanne Russo. I'm a teacher here, but also have been a parent throughout most of my kids' education here. one question that I have, and I do want to point out, you know, it's funny, we were just talking about test scores at a leadership meeting that we were at, and how it's not, one test does not make the student. There's so much more that involves in that, and that it's not, and actually what the guidance counselor had said too is that the schools are looking a little bit more for the whole student versus just any of the tests, a specific test. But besides that, one question that I have is what will you do to advocate for state law and policy that is supportive of public education?
You get to start again?
Well, you just mentioned you went
Yeah,
to lobby.
we were just at the state capitol a month ago talking to our representatives, Senator Senator Fitzgerald and Representative Clayfish. And Fitzgerald was in his office, and he was very accommodating to us. And we talked to him about our needs and what we needed to run a good school district, as did the other area schools that he was represented. And after that, we went to Dr. Clayfish's office, we went to Assemblyman Clayfish's office, and he wasn't there. He had another person take notes, so hopefully the notes get to him. Whether that happens or not, I don't know. But anyway, we talked to his representative. So that's one of the things we're doing. And it takes more than just us. I mean, we can advocate for the schools, but we need the community to advocate, and we need teachers to advocate too, especially in this political climate.
And I think too, Dr. Mason, that there is an ongoing dialogue with Jefferson County administration, with the respective legislators that represent each of those districts, and it's more than just Lake Mills. So this is like on a monthly basis where administrators get together with the legislators or their staff and have general discussions, and there is some advocacy and lobbying to the extent that we can.
I would just piggyback. I'm glad you reminded me of that. One of the board members from Fort Atkinson started this group, and basically the group is comprised of all the superintendents in the county, in Jefferson County, and board members are invited. And we meet once a month in Jefferson, and all of the representatives, all of the legislators are invited that represent us in that whole area, and some are very faithful in showing up, not a lot, and some have never come to listen to what our needs and wants are and so on. So we meet once a month, and that's another effort to at least talk to our representatives.
Sandy, would you care to make any comments about what CAPE might be doing? I know you've sponsored many forums.
Right. Since the time that we have been in existence, one of our goals has been to provide information about current educational issues. And we have conducted a forum a couple of years ago on the ABCs of school vouchers, in which we presented information, because at that time vouchers were just becoming a topic of conversation. We also conducted a forum on the smartest kids in the world, and we talked about what are the things based on a study that had been done by a journalist of different countries around the world, and how they succeeded in creating students who performed well on tests, and again, looking at tests as just one way of measuring student success. We have sponsored a school board forum a couple of years ago when there were four candidates for a position, to let the community know that the candidates' stances on different things and help them make a decision on who they would be voting for. We continue to provide information about educational issues. We are a nonpartisan group. We do not support a political party or a political candidate, but we have found, as the board has mentioned, that education has become politicized over the past couple of years. So we just really encourage you to be informed about the issues that are happening right now around the state budget, around voucher expansion, around charter schools and the development of those. Because even though we don't right now have voucher schools in Lake Mills and we don't have charter schools in Lake Mills, all of those things have an impact on the state budget. And I'd be happy to provide a lot of information to you. I could probably overwhelm you with information about all of these issues. But I encourage all of you to, to read newspaper articles, to get information from a variety of sources. And then we're at a point now where we need to be contacting our legislators, letting them know our viewpoints. We firmly believe in public education, and I think everyone in this room does. And in order to continue having the public education system that we are very proud of, we're going to need to continue to advocate and work for that. We have a great system here in Lake Mills. We want it to stay that way, and it will take some work. And as I said, as our local group, we're advocating for education here in Lake Mills, and we are happy to provide information to you about any issue that you would be interested in or wanting to be informed about. I hope that answered the question.
Yes.
I also have some ideas too that I think that, as each of us as people, the things that I think that a person can do and that I do, and that is I'm an advocate for education, generally and specifically for public education. I also try to stay informed. I think Sandy just mentioned about trying to stay informed. And then the next thing I do is I try to stay positive. There's enough doom and gloom out there. You don't need to be doom and gloom. You don't need to think about what is. You want to think about what can be. That's how I try to keep my right frame of mind and be positive. And then the last thing we can all do is go to the ballot box. It's up to us, Things are the way they are because of some things that happen at the ballot box, so we all need to stay. But education has a lot to offer, and just by being advocates and staying positive and being informed and using our rights, we can keep it strong.
Rachel, comment.
I'd like to piggyback on that a little bit. I think that's really important and that's really key. I think overall as a community we do pretty well to get the vote out, but not everybody votes. Not everybody votes every time. And I think the other thing about that, or part of that, is it's hard to have a conversation. We're a small town and nobody wants to make their neighbor mad. But we don't have to think about a conversation as making someone mad. We can simply have a conversation and maybe we'll learn something from each other. I think that's part of what we're doing here tonight. And I think more of that needs to happen. I can think of plenty of times where I've been not willing to engage in a conversation with someone because it became very political very quickly, and I didn't want to make them upset, and I didn't, I felt like, well, let's just let them think what they think. But by the same token, that doesn't do anybody any favors. More of a conversation can be had. I think there used to be a time where everybody did engage in political conversations and then they shook hands and walked away. It wasn't a big deal, but for some reason, the model that's happening in Washington and in our state capitol isn't that way, that there's a lot of tension, and we need to get back to a time when we can really talk about the issues and just talk.
Any other comments? Of course, I realize, Sandy, you're not a board member, but when Rick mentioned citizen advocates, I couldn't pass up the opportunity to give you a chance to speak about the great work you're doing. Are there any other questions?
My name is Diane Fritsch. I live at 609 Mulberry Street in Lake Mills. Both my husband and I have been here 35 years, plus years, and I wanted to ask the board if they are doing anything significant to educate, especially middle school and high school students, about what Lake Mills High School alumni are doing. Now, obviously, we have some of you on the board. We have principal here that are alumni and so forth. But I think, well, let me tell you why I said that. When my husband, they thought he had a heart attack and they took him to the hospital, the driver of the ambulance and the technician in the ambulance were both his students when he was teaching here. That's pretty cool. He was like, wow, that's really neat. His hairdresser is one of his students. And, you know, it goes on and on and on. And the thing is I don't know how many of our kids realize that the people around them are graduates of Lake Mills High School. I went to do some checking around for some carpentry work, and one of the people I talked to was also, you know, they're all over the place. Not only in Lake Mills, by the way, they cover the world. We have people graduated from here who are doing significant things, and I think our kids need to know that kids just like them are doing these things. I think sometimes it's hard for kids to see themselves as doing that, but if they could maybe, you know, some way with the curriculum, maybe some, I don't know how, I'd be willing to work on that. But I think we're missing an opportunity. Have you done much with that? And I just don't know about it because I'm not in the loop anymore. Or is that something we could maybe look at?
Comments?
Well, we have a recognition program for alumni. But really, what she says is true. We probably don't recognize enough alumni. We just pick out one or two people every so many years and recognize them. And actually, I don't know if we even have a huge amount of people that attend that, but I don't know if they're still doing it. Maybe Pam can answer this, but usually when we used to recognize people, they would come the day before, the day of, and they would talk to the student body. I don't know if that's still occurring or not. It's not? No? Okay. But we do have wonderful, outstanding students that we should bring in to educate our own students right now.
I can just mention a few things. That program kind of fizzled out because the people that we choose are always so busy they can't stay for an extended amount of time. I think you've all been in attendance where they fly in and maybe stay one night to see their parents and then move out. Diane and I have been talking. We've been talking about how we can do that more. And one of the ideas that we came up with was to have parents who might still be in the community tell us about their students, and then I'm going to do some where are they now kinds of things on our Facebook page. Another thing that we do is we specifically talk about our student athletes and how they perform in college. That's done through things in the weight room and, you know, different kinds of posters and kind of some things there. But that has been a topic that we've been talking about because our kids do amazing, amazing things and are truly all over this planet doing all kinds of things. And we have talked about how can we do that. And I think that's one of the reasons that during the strategic planning, the whole communication piece comes up because it's not just about test scores, even though they're increasing, and I can show you where you can find those. But how we can, you know, celebrate all the different things that people are bringing, you know, to the whole world on behalf of Lake Mills.
Another question. Ken?
Oh, I think she's in line.
Oh, did you have a question? Oh, okay.
Yep, like they're standing up and.
I didn't know we had a line
Yep.
forming, okay.
It sort of looked like that's what Diane did,
Pam,
so I went over there.
Pam, you better move unless you have another.
Okay. My name's Brenda Morris. I've taught English here at the high school this is my 16th year. And in the context of the current state budget proposal and the possibility of losing that $150 per student, if we are facing cuts, I was just wondering how will the board act to preserve the diversity of programs we have in our district, which have been considered a strength, like art and music and world language and things like that.
How come I
I'm
have
new,
to?
don't look at me.
Boy, you could have refused the presidency.
I think that
too, you know.
the main thing is not to overreact at this point because the budget hasn't been finalized. And the things I'm hearing is there's beginning to be some movement on K-12. If there's, you know, all the taxes come in this month. So by May, will know, or the state will know how much tax money they got in, and hopefully it's greater than what they expected, and we can get some money back from it. Whether it happens or not, we don't know. And they're holding, the other thing I'm hearing is they're holding the really controversial issues, the K-12 funding, the higher ed funding, to the very end, so they don't have to make a decision up front. They're doing the easy stuff first and waiting to the end. So it could be in June before we ever hear what's going on. And then we can look at cuts. And, you know, at this point, it's just too early to really say, well, we're going to cut, what we're not going to cut, when we don't know how much we have to cut, if we do.
I think too, as our funding comes also based on enrollment. And our enrollment has always been growing. So as long as this community helps us out and keeps growing, we should be able to get more state aids. And no matter if they change the funding formula, to some extent it's going to be based on enrollment. We have a school district that can attract open enrollment students. That helps too. So if you know any students who are looking for a place to come, we invite them here.
I know of a nice home on South Main Street, which houses a pretty good-sized family.
House quite a few children, huh?
Just keep them coming.
Yeah.
Right.
Ken? Yep.
I'm Ken Stetson. I used to be on the board and struggled with any of the same issues you are, but I'd like to get a little perspective to Rachel. The same issue that you're talking about from good to great, at the turn of the century, it was from poor to good. Because there was a great influx of people from Eastern Europe, which we'd never had before. In the 1890s, it were the Italians and the Yugoslavs and that group, as opposed to the English and the Irish and the Germans. And so people wanted to have their language spoken. They wanted to have this, that, and the other thing. And eventually, families got involved. And one of the problems that I see in education today is that schools are being asked to do a lot of things that families used to do in regards to character education and a lot of other things. And that expands the role of the school, and I don't know how you measure that. You can't do it with the test score. You certainly can't do it, well, maybe you could do it with the arrest records. Maybe that's a way of accomplishing the same thing. Is it going to be a very difficult task for you folks to handle not only the lack of funds for staffing, but we've got roofs that occasionally leak. We have a new technology that we're trying to keep up with. The technology changes about every week, and we budget for less than that. And so you can't keep up with technology. So how do you keep on cutting edge of technology, take care of the social issues that you're facing with, and raising test scores all at the same time? It's a very difficult task. And I don't have any questions for you. I just commend you for your efforts. Thank you.
Thank you, Ken. Question?
Hello, I'm Jim Williams. My wife and I have been living here for about 13 years. My question is regarding the strategic plan. And I understand this plan evolved from meetings last fall. What I'm curious about is how is this different from the previous direction we were heading? What has changed as a result of this? What are we doing different?
Rick, would you
Donna,
care to-
Rachel? No, it's not me. I wasn't on that committee. It's someone, Donna and Rachel were both on the committee that helped rewrite that, so you guys can talk.
You want to talk first, Rachel? Go ahead.
Sure. Again, it's hard. I'm the new person on the block. When we met, it was over the winter. There was one in the fall where we met, I don't know, 4 or 5 times, and then another one starting in January, and we met another whole bunch of times. So there was a lot of discussion, where we did a SWOT analysis of the district, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats. We looked at our current mission and vision. We looked at mission and vision of other schools across the nation. We looked at, where are we trying to go with this? What are we trying to use this for? And really, the mission, vision, and belief statements, it's a set of, it's sort of our charter. And we wanted to inspire, we wanted to be concise, we wanted to let people, both within the district and outside of the district, know what we're about. And in terms of internalizing this and using it as kind of the base for everything we do, we're not there yet. This is, I think, the actual plan itself hasn't been adopted yet. Is that correct? So it's the mission, the vision, and the belief statements have. The strategic plan will be coming in front of the board soon. And where we really talk about, I don't know, is that on the, okay, so everybody has that too. The idea is to take this as the charter and then incorporate it into everything we do with the children, for the staff and the children and the administration and the board to internalize it, for the community also to look to it and understand where we want to go with it. But in terms of incorporating it into an actual curriculum, I don't think there are any plans for that per se, but we do an awful lot of character education and as well as professional development with the staff. So I know that a lot of this is there sort of underlying. Donna?
The strategic plan that you have in your hand, the new one that's been updated, there's been strategic planning going on in this district for a long time. So one strategic plan kind of builds on the last one, and things change a little bit, but some things remain stable over time, like student achievement or putting students first. But if I looked at this and you wonder what's kind of changed, I can give you a few examples. One is, if you look down where we believe in the ability to think critically is an essential life skill. I think we've always put emphasis on problem solving and critical thinking, but we live in a problem solving world today. Rote learning isn't going to make it anymore. So that kind of has added new emphasis. The other thing I think that changed a lot in this strategic plan was our belief in building a green environment and a clean environment and healthy students and things. We used to kind of take some of that for granted, and if you looked in our last strategic plan, you probably wouldn't see the emphasis on it that you see now. We're starting to see the results of when people don't take care of themselves and when people don't live in a healthy environment. And we don't want that for our children. We want to bring them up in an environment where they can problem solve, do critical thinking, and make decisions about their health. So many of the things here have occurred in the last strategic plan and probably ones before that. And then the things that I think have added to it is our belief in green initiatives, healthy eating and living in environment. The idea of character ed has always kind of been there, the inclusion of students, and I think Ken mentioned just the idea of that we have many different needs to meet today. If you look back to an old strategic plan, you probably wouldn't, you'd talk about inclusion of all students, but you wouldn't see the emphasis on diversity that you see in this one. So, and what does this lead to? It looks good on paper. Well, it translates to, during the year, what we do is we have our schools, they have goals, school goals, and they have classroom goals, and the teachers with the new teacher effectiveness have to write student learning objectives, and this brings them back to sort of what the mission and the vision of the district are and what the district goals are. And hopefully they all kind of work together so that we can look back on this and say, what are we doing? Like you just asked us, what are you doing? And we can document what it is that we're doing. So
I think,
go ahead, Rachel.
I think one of the other new things or more emphasis was put on communication. I know that we've heard a lot of that. And I know as a parent in the district, before I joined any of the committees and especially this board, that's one of the concerns I had, and that we'll be working on as a board too, is getting information out there. We live in an age of information, and it's there. You know, we don't need an encyclopedia anymore. You just Google it. So one of the big things, the big themes that came up in all of our planning was communication, and that's part of embracing the village philosophy, understanding that it's not us and them, it's we, and that it takes all of us to raise our children.
Yes, then Joanne will be next.
Just quickly to add a point of clarification, the first phase of the strategic plan was approved by the board in January of 2015. The back page where it says strategic plan adopted spring of 2015, Mr. Sanders gave us permission to go ahead and print that. It has not been formally approved by the board and won't be until their May meeting. So in terms of actually beginning to implement it, it won't be able to happen until then. But he was kind enough to say, I'm quite sure the board's going to approve this, and so we wanted to share it with you tonight.
Actually, Rachel, you sort of just responded to that. You said something about communication, and that was going to be my question: is how will that communication take place? Because I think that's an easy thing to say. It's a harder thing to do because it almost takes a full-time person. I mean, we've talked about it. I've been in many committees and things like that, and that you need one person that is doing all that communication. I mean, it even addresses what Diane was talking about the alumni and stuff, that you could really be sending out lots of messages in many different ways. But I guess, you know, did the strategic group come up with some specific methods of sharing information, being more transparent? Because I think that's key.
It wasn't really our place to come up with how it will be done. It was our charge to identify strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, and then put it out there in a way that people could understand and internalize. I think that's something I know that the schools, the administrators, and the district has been working on. I don't know. As a parent, I see more communication. I see more meat in the weekly emails that I get in terms of what's happening in the school, what's coming up, some of the main points from professional development that are happening, or some neat things that are happening, or key things that are happening in music or art, or some of the other classes and the other grades. I know the teachers themselves at the elementary school put out a weekly email to let you know what's going on, and those have gotten better. So I know from an individual standpoint, those things are happening, and it's a work in progress. It always will be. But we've only had sort of a bullet point conversation about the need for some of that, more of that from a board and maybe a district perspective or level.
I think it's really difficult to communicate in this town with one paper a week. It's hard, and a good example is the recent activity with the boiling of the water. And I'm not pointing fingers at anybody, but I found that out from my daughter who lives in another city. And I don't look at the website, the Lake Mills website, that often, and I didn't really know what was going on. So, how do you communicate with people is the question. And the internal communication that goes on, if you have a child in school, is really excellent. You talk about good to great. I think it's great at the elementary, middle, and high school. That goes on all the time. And we see that as board members, but you as maybe a community don't. And that's a real challenge to get communication out in a timely manner, just to let you know what we're doing, how we're doing on the test scores, how we're doing, what we're doing in the schools. And you'd be amazed at the things that are going on, and they don't get coverage very well.
I think even from a standpoint of what are the things coming down the pipeline that affect us, like the budget, the state budget. A lot of people don't understand how that will affect us, and as a district, getting that information out there so that when they see if there's a cut or something, that the community understands it.
Yeah, I don't know if we understand it all the time.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Somebody like to get into line? I don't know if the board can really respond to this or not, but when I was reading through the strategic plan and when it said recruiting, retaining, developing, inspiring effective educators, and that has been one of the concerns you've had and a challenge. And I was in industry for more than 25 years, and one of the standard trite epithets that was espoused was those who can do and those who can't teach. Well, it took me a while, but after 25 years or more in industry, I found that those who can teach and those who can't usually end up in management. So my question is, you've said it's a competitive market. Oh, does today's political scenario, do you see any trend that less qualified people will be going into teaching now? Fewer people will be choosing this as a noble profession.
Let me just give you an example because it's fresh in my mind. I was talking to a teacher, not in our district, in another district, nearby district, and she said, you know, I've taught 3 years, I haven't gotten a raise. What do I do? Okay, and we talked about that and so on. She said, I can go to another nearby district that will remain unnamed and get a $10,000 increase. You know, so it's almost like a no-brainer, you know. Doesn't want to leave this particular district, but, you know, the money is certainly compelling. The other thing, there's a proposal out there that if you pass a test, if you have a bachelor's degree and pass a test, you can become a teacher. And that's, I don't know if it's working its way through the legislature, but it's been introduced. And I certainly have problems with that, and that goes to what you said about those being less qualified perhaps teaching.
That's been out there in other areas, especially in impoverished areas, where you, if you have a bachelor's degree, you can get a like a temporary teaching license and then work your way towards a certification. I don't know the data on that, but anecdotally, they didn't last. So, you know, it was more than what they had bargained for.
Yeah.
It seems like an easy task, but unless you have the passion for it and the understanding of what it entails, it's a hard job. It's a hard job, period. I was a teacher for a long time. So I don't know how that will affect us, even if it goes through, because, I mean, except for teacher turnover, it's a hard profession if you're not prepared for it.
Mr. Storrs, I can't speak to quality, but I can speak to quantity. I sponsor a scholarship for graduates of this high school, and I've targeted students who want to engage in the field of education. And I've done this for the last 7 years, and I have noticed that there is a diminished number of applicants, children who have shown an interest in pursuing that. So.
Unfortunate.
Sorry.
Do you, another comment?
Yeah,
Rachel?
just an anecdote to that. I was the only person in my class who was going to be a teacher, I think, but a whole bunch of people throughout their college, the course of taking college courses, then eventually decided to become teachers, and Spanish teachers at that. So, so things change as you go through, and you kind of see where you want to be. So I'm not sure if coming out of high school is necessarily the thing that's going to tell you exactly where the students end up, because a whole bunch of people who were going to go into business and were going to do great things then suddenly decided to become teachers. So, and the other thing I want to mention is we're the only country that thinks that way. If you can't, then you teach. We are the only country. Everywhere else, teachers are regarded like lawyers and doctors.
Diane.
Diane Fritsch. I just wanted to say that I think I was on the first strategic planning committee. And I thought, when I thought about the question about what's different is really an important question, because I believe the things that we had on our list as a strategic planning back there, they're now part of the core. Things that we were telling kids that they needed to do, they are now, it's part of them. We don't have to tell them anymore. And now we're thinking of new things we have to tell them. And some of those might be old things too, because sometimes you lose some of the old as you move forward too, and then you have to reteach and bring that back. But I did want to tell you that I think that's the key of good strategic planning, is when the strategic planning becomes part of the core and part of the way of life.
My wife is pointing at the watch, and we have 20 minutes left. I might just have one more quick one, if that's okay here. I was listening to the conservative radio station, WPR, and talking about many schools, especially in Wisconsin, facing extreme fiscal difficulties. But the only way to get out of it was by taking out really predatory loans, and which Wall Street loves. And of course, we hear about Madison with a $10.8 to $15 million shortfall. I don't know where the $150 a student impacts Lake Mills, but could you give us just a brief idea of the fiscal stability of our school district?
What is the fiscal stability?
I know it depends upon the public, but
Well, not necessarily, because we just had our audit report.
Mhm.
And the district is in good stead financially. I mean,
Good.
we have a good, healthy fund balance. We have good revenues coming in, and we're keeping our expenditures in check. And we're paying for our schools, and so that's what the auditor told us. Was it a week ago Monday when
Yeah.
we had the meeting? So what is the financial position of the district? Right today, it's good. What will
sound.
it be tomorrow? I don't know.
Mhm.
Well, just to piggyback on that, you know, I talked about referendums, and this last election in April, there were 36 referendums in the state. 36 held to exceed there were other referendums for other things, buildings and so on, but there were 36 to exceed the cap. Okay, there's a revenue cap that we have to work under, and these were to exceed it, and 28 passed out of the 36, which means that 8 didn't. And one of them is a nearby district, and they're looking at, about 1.25 million cut in somewhere. We're looking, if we don't get that $150, which doesn't sound like a lot per child, we're looking at a roughly $240,000 cut.
I was thinking.
So it's significant for us to deal with, but it's more significant in some of these other districts around us.
And it's significant in relationship that we're always positioning ourselves to kind of handle some of these cuts. Like our district just refinanced some of our loans at a savings of what was our savings?
What, $20,000 a month? A month?
A year.
Year? Yep. Year.
20,000 a year. Overall, it was like 200,000 over the length of the time of the loan. So whenever you're looking at, not only are you not planning for cuts, but you're always looking for ways to save money and to be more efficient in what you do, in your financial status. And so how are we going to handle these cuts? I don't know, but we know one way. We refinanced some of our loans, so that's some money that we have there. We have a healthy fund balance right now. I mean, our policy says around 20%. Our fund balance is at 25%. So those are all things you have to, that's why you need a good business manager like we have that takes these things into account and have had. The district has had good financial management over the years.
Any parting comments the board would like to make? If not, I certainly want to thank you for your time and your patience with us, and I'll turn it back over to Sandy.
And I appreciate Cape putting on the forum for us, and I appreciate your attendance tonight. certainly.
And we certainly appreciate your willingness to be part of this first of hopefully many attempts and opportunities to have a good communication. So thank you. I'd also like to thank Joe for being our moderator tonight. I always appreciate your help with this. And never to lose an opportunity to advertise. I have our CAPE brochure. We have a Facebook page. We have a website that is being newly revised. As I mentioned before, we're a local public education advocacy group. We believe in public education. We feel we have strong public schools. We have a great staff. We have great facilities here in Lake Mills, and we want to keep them that way. So if you are at all interested, please consider joining us. We only have a $10 membership fee a year, and we use that for a variety of our CAPE activities. So I want to thank all of you for taking the time out of what I know are busy schedules to come tonight and be part of this dialogue. Please share it with your friends and neighbors and look for it on local cable access. And again, thanks for coming.